So let's take a look at the New York strip steak. This New York strip steak is selling for about $8.25 a pound. And on that market, Restaurant Depot would be charging $11.89 a pound for the steak. So you're going to ask, why do I want to pay $11.89 for a steak when I could buy the entire strip loin for a few dollars a pound less and have a cheaper steak? Let's take a look what really happens. Let's open it up. And remember, whenever you open up vacuum packaged product, you've got blood in here and purge. You can see all that red in there. You've already lost 1% of the weight in purge when you open up that bag. So we're going to remove the bag and get the New York strip. A lot of fat on top of this. It's got to come off. A little bit of fat on the bottom. It's got to come off. On a New York strip, the bones are on the bottom side. There's this silver shiny part that you may or may not be able to see here, but the bone is against this, and all that silver has to come off. It's not edible. We're using a 0x1 strip. When we talk about a 0x1 strip, we look at the eye. We have 1 inch of a lip or 1 inch of fat over the eye on one side, and then on the other side, we really have almost no lip. So our spec is a 1/2 inch lip at the most on our New York strips. So we're going to take this on the 1 inch side and we're going to measure it and we're going to bring it down to a 1/2 inch and we're going to trim that all the way down. May need a little bit more trimming, but you can see what I just took off. It's almost all fat. So we'll take this little bit of meat off the trimmings and we'll put that in our trimming pile. And then we're going to put the fat over there. We're going to put the trimming in here to keep it separate. Something else that's different about a New York strip and all the other cuts of beef is there's a very thick strap that goes over the top. It has to be removed. You can't chew it. Nobody leaves it on the steak. So we're going to take this strap off and take the whole thing off. It goes from one end to the other, all the way across. Here, you see I have to take more off. I left a little bit on, but that all has to come off. This very shiny thing, tough as shoe leather. Can't have it. There's a little bit of trimming on there, so to be all fair with everything, we're going to take that trimming off. And this strap will go in here. We have a little bit more strap to remove before we can even consider portioning the steak. Okay, and you can't even take this strap and consider putting it into anything. Can't put it in the soup, can't put it in the stew, you can't grind it. It's just inedible. Can't do anything with it. All right, so we have almost all the strap removed. I'll go in there. We're going to take a little bit of this fat off the bottom. Again, it's all fat, a little trimming, a little fat. So the first thing you notice about this before I start cutting steaks, when you're looking at a New York strip steak, it is very big on one end and very small on another. What happens if you only have an 8-ounce portion on your menu? Well, obviously, on the small side, that's going to be one heck of a very thick 8-ounce portion. And when you get to the large side, it's going to be a very thin 8-ounce portion. And there's one other thing to remember before we start cutting this. Restaurant Depot portion New York strips are all center cuts. The center cut comes from about 2/3 of the New York. The other third is what you call an end steak. Some people call it a vein steak. That's a byproduct. We do not put that in our boxes. We sell that at a discount. That is not a steak that most people want to see on their plate unless it's an inexpensive menu with a breakfast steak or steak and eggs, but we will not put this in with our center steaks. So let's start cutting it and see what we get. We're going to assume that we're trying to get, say, all 12-ounce portions. I'm not measuring this. But what happens in the back of the house when you're cutting them yourself or somebody else is cutting them? Is every single one 12 ounces? Is every single one an exact portion? If you're assuming your portion is going to cost, I don't know, for example, maybe $8, and they go and cut a 9-ounce, I have news for you. Your portion cost just went up. What happens if they cut it small? What if they accidentally cut a 6 or 7-ounce? Well, if it's not the owner of the company, maybe he's going to throw it in the garbage. Maybe he's going to try and hide his mistake. We don't know. We know with Restaurant Depot portions, fresh portions, every one is exact. We guarantee it. You know your food cost, you know your portion cost, because in the restaurant business, it's all about controlling food cost. So first we're going to cut through this, and then you're going to be amazed at all the fat that you're going to see on the top of this steak that must come off. Our spec calls for about 1/8 of an inch of fat, plus or minus 1/8, so it could be up to 1/4 of an inch of fat. All right. Now I'm left with this end piece here. It's very thin on the bottom. It's very fat on the top. Not a whole lot you can do with that. We will cut one steak out of this. And there's no way we're going to get a steak out of this other little portion here. So that's going in the trimming pile. The vein steak that I was talking about, the part that will not go in our center cut is this. If you can see this line right here, it does not go in. It's not desirable. It's a little bit tough, chewy. Doesn't go in with our centers. So we're going to start by separating every steak that's a vein steak. And we have 3 of them. Actually, that one, we're going to let that go with the centers. That's borderline. So we have a lot of fat on top of all these steaks. We have to trim this down. We have to get it to within the Restaurant Depot spec. So we're going to take a lot of that top fat off and any loose piece of meat, and we're going to trim every single one of these. And we're going to have some really beautiful steaks. And not only are they beautiful, and I keep saying this, but when we do it at Restaurant Depot, every single one is an exact size. Portion cost exact on every single one. So we're going to remove all that. These are our vein steaks. We'll keep them separate. Again, you can see all this fat that has to come off. If you're cutting this yourself in the back of the house, that's pretty expensive when you're paying for that. We're removing it. Okay, so we'll go through this pretty quickly here and get ourselves down to the end. And we've got about 14, 15 steaks here. And as I'm cutting this, and I'll show you a little better when I'm done, as I mentioned, the New York strip has different sizes to it. It's big on one end, it's small on another end. Somebody in the kitchen is going to be trying to figure out how to make that steak be the way they want it to be, but they're going to have a difficult time. These aren't cookie cutters. It's not like everyone is an exact size. All right, got about 5 more. Got this one we'll take down. This one we'll take down. 3 more steaks. 2 more steaks. And 1 more steak. All right, so let's take a look at the steaks that we just cut. The New York strip loin weighed 14 pounds with a cost per pound of $8.25 a pound, or an extended value of $115.50. The end steaks made up 19% of the weight and weighed 2.66 pounds with a cost per pound of $4 a pound, or an extended value of $10.64. The trimmings made up 8% of the weight and weighed 1.12 pounds with a cost per pound of $1 and an extended value of $1.12. The fat, the silver skin, the shrink made up 13% of the weight at 1.82 pounds and has no value. Center cut steaks made up 60% of the weight at 8.4 pounds with a cost per pound of $12.35 a pound and an extended value of $103.74. Based off of this cost structure, at Restaurant Depot, our fresh portion steaks would have cost you $11.89 a pound. The features and benefits of Restaurant Depot's fresh portion steaks include 100% yield. There is no additional trimming of worthless fat. You incur no additional labor cost. Each steak has precise sizing for exact portion cost, something that you cannot guarantee if you're cutting your own steaks. Each steak is individually vacuum packaged for extended shelf life, so you can use only what you need when you want to and save the rest for another day. Our steaks are available in both USDA choice graded beef and USDA select graded beef. Our fresh portion steaks all come from the finest Midwest corn-fed beef, and they're all hand-cut for perfect sizing and trim specifications. Restaurant Depot strongly discourages the use of your own table trimmings. The main reason is the E. coli issue that I am sure you are aware of. The USDA mandates that all meat packers do a test and hold sampling process on all ground beef. Millions of pounds are held daily for 24 hours prior to selling. Millions of dollars are spent testing for E. coli annually. There is no test and hold on the subprimals that you're cutting your steaks out of. Restaurants grinding their own table trimmings will be at risk for serving E. coli contaminated ground beef, unless you cook your ground beef to 165-degree internal, which will kill the E. coli bacteria. So the choice is up to you. You can buy a whole New York strip loin, where you're going to get some vein ends, which have very little value. You're going to get some trimmings. You're going to get a lot of fat. You're going to get some nice steaks, which may or may not be the exact portion size you're trying to get. Or you can buy Restaurant Depot fresh portion controlled steaks.